Your journey is nothing short of grit and persistence, and you still made it. That's what I need, someone who actually knows what they're talking about.
My experience taught me I shouldn't be afraid of anything. Fear is fake evidence appearing real. At the end of the day, it's one thing to be a visionary. I went deep 7 years just learning every detail of real estate, funds, syndication. And if I knew anything about business at this point, it's not about if it will go wrong, it's when. There's always something you miss on.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Path of Progress. I'm your host Alex Kononov, and today I'm joined by someone who truly embodies the entrepreneurial spirit, Eddie Austin. Eddie is a serial entrepreneur, real estate fund manager, and mentor with 2 decades of experience building businesses and leading real estate ventures across the country. From single-family homes to massive commercial developments and now running funds over 300 million, Eddie's journey is all about scaling with purpose, creating opportunity, and helping others build indestructible wealth through real estate. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Man, thank you so much. This is such an honor to be on here with you today and just share with the audience, man, what this is all about. You know, I believe that I've been blessed with a lot, but it's all about stewardship, man. I've just been entrusted with a lot, and I think that that's only because I've been a good steward so far. I've been able to give back quite a bit, and I think that's the real common denominator there that really helps you get more as being a good steward and being trusted with what you do have.
You're so modest. Eddie, I'm excited to have you here. Your story really fascinates. So let's take us back for our listeners who don't know you. When did your entrepreneurial spirit came to life and real estate journey begin?
Well, man, I got to start from ground zero. You know, I got to say my parents really showed me what the good and the bad of the entrepreneurial spirit, because my parents were entrepreneurs and they led a life that had a lot of time freedom. You know, we traveled a lot when I was younger. We went all over the eastern coast. We went to the Bahamas. We went to the Keys. We dove a lot. And I also remember times that it was like feast or famine, right? And there was times that we definitely didn't have a lot. Like we had to scale back a bunch, and I watched them start over. So I didn't know exactly what entrepreneurship was at that time, but I knew what they did. I really liked the life that they were able to provide me, and I wanted to give the same for my kids. So as I got older and got more curious, I really wanted to know what that looked like. I know my dad always had a skilled trade, and now Dad was a carpenter, and I would say that Dad's carpentry skills really helped him with a lot of different things. So that's kind of what it always tied to. He was very resourceful. He could fix things. He could build things. He was a boat builder. And that provided money at some point. And he was also a person that could grow plants, so we had nurseries and stuff. And about 12 years old, I had tremendous trouble in school. I was decided to be removed from school and go into homeschool. And at homeschool, I was able to really lean into my first part of an entrepreneurial journey, which was learning a skilled trade that I could turn into an entrepreneurial business later on in life. So at 12 years old, man, I'm working 40 hours a week, taking vocational school and learning the skilled trade of welding. And it's pretty cool, man. I've got the manuscript finished of my book, which I think the title is going to be Welded to Wealth, which is my journey from about 12 years old to where I am today, being totally financially free and having my time freedom.
I'm excited to read this book. When do you have plans for it?
Then the plan is always, it's going to be this year, pushing really hard to get that done, working with, editors, trying to figure out who's going to be the best publisher, because I want it to make a splash. I want it to make an impact, not for money, but for the reason that I truly want to go to conferences, listen to a podcast, and somebody say in the comments, man, I just read his book and it was life-changing. Like that, every time I picked up the pen or sat in front of the keyboard, every single word was getting vulnerable and getting down to the pain points of my journey and to the good parts of my journey. And, there's been times I've let some people read it. It was able to give them some chills. And they're like, man, this is so cool. I'm so glad that you're, taking the initiative to do it. And I don't say all this to brag. I don't. You'll find that none of the things that I do is because of pride and ego. Matter of fact, I had to let a lot of that stuff go, man. I had a lot of wins, and those wins didn't teach me a whole lot. They just taught me to be a person with a lot of pride and ego and think I could just win on autopilot. And there was a point God made my kingdom crumble, and I had to start over with nothing. And I never lost an investor's dollar. I never filed bankruptcy, but I went below zero, and I had to come back from that.
I think it's important to go way on the very beginning to understand really how you made yourself and how you became who you are today. And I think a lot of coming from the family, right? Your family raised you in entrepreneurial spirit, and you picked it up and you become welder, skilled trade. So how long did you were working as a skilled laborer, and when did you decide, hey, I want to actually grow it to a business, an actual business, and move on to real estate then?
Yeah, absolutely. Even before becoming a welder, I was also in the bilge with my dad's mechanics learning diesel. And as I grew up, we worked on our own equipment. We worked on our own engines. And so I had mechanical skill set as well as the welding. And I graduate school 2 years early, and I decided to move back home with my mom. And mom's working as an administrative clerk at a hospital. At this point, dad's working, building boats in another state, and we're kind of separated as a family. I could see that the financials wasn't working out so easy. And mom's like, you need to go enjoy yourself, get you a first-time job. I know you've been working a lot. You work 40 hours a week, got your education done, plus the welding trade, and you're working full-time with that. So I think you should be a kid a little bit. So I went and got a job as a bowling alley, attendant, kind of mechanic, run the front desk and stuff like that. A fun job, right, for a teenager. I'm 15 years old at this point and turning 16. And I got my first truck, and my first truck had a great big high-power engine in it that probably didn't get miles per gallon. It probably got gallons per mile, like it was the other way around. And it was a lot of fun, but it took a lot. So my entire paycheck was going to just putting gas in this thing and joyriding. And it was a blast, and I worked with some good people, and I started learning. I was always that kid or that young man that I was always paying attention to the every detail of how people walked in the door, how people were treated at the front desk, and who got the most sales, and what was the difference between the way that person was treated by this sales associate or the other one, how many people came up there complaining, how we handled that. I was always super interested in that kind of stuff. So fast forward a little bit, I realized that I'm like, look, I learned a skilled trade, but here I am at a bowling alley, not making enough money to even put food and gas in me or my vehicle. I got to do something about this. And I came home one day and I told my mom, I said, I'm going to go get a job, a real job today. And she goes, oh, son, you don't need to do that, because she knew I was 16 years old. So how would I be able to get a real job, being under the age of 18? So I drove down to a local shipyard, and I said, hey, I don't know if you're hiring or not, but I'm a pretty good welder, happy to take any tests you would like. And the guy overheard what was going on, the conversation. He goes, you know how to make the spark fly? I said, yes, sir, I do. And he goes, would you be willing to take a welding test? I said, yes, sir. I was always raised Southern, so it was always yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And he goes, well, let me get my welding instructor. We'll tack some plates up. We'll see if you can actually make the spark. So they tack a plate that's overhead and uphill, and I start. He gives me a helmet. They say, okay, son, the machine's already set up. You just need to run a bead up through there like you're actually going to have this plate tested. So it needs to be good. It's okay, no problem. So I drop my hood down and I start throwing sparks. About halfway up, you always have a reflection in a welding hood. You can see behind you because it's kind of like a mirrored glass. I could see them put their head up and look at each other and shake their head. Like at that point, they knew that I wasn't just talking, like I knew I could weld. And he tapped me on the shoulder and he goes, you don't need to go any farther. I didn't even get to the overhead plate. And he goes, you can make the sparks fly. Because the vertical's the hardest. And I was doing the vertical first. He said, you start on whichever one you want. So we go back up front, and I finished out my application, and he goes, when can you start? I said, today, tomorrow. You tell me when, man, I'll be here. I'm ready to go to work. I didn't portray myself as I was some 16-year-old kid. I portrayed myself as I know what I'm talking about. I can walk the walk, and I just showed you that I can do it. And I got hired. I come home. They called me before I got home and they said, "Hey, can you start tomorrow, 7 a.m.?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I come home. I said, "Mom, I got a job at a shipyard." She goes, "You're kidding me. Doing what?" And I said, "As a welder." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, son, like this is incredible." So I wanted to help at that age. Like I wanted to help my mom with her financials and just help out the family. Now she never would let me do that. She's like, "No, absolutely not. You know, you need to set yourself up for financial freedom." So fast forward again, I worked at that job a while. Life got crazy. I was there for over a year, I think it was. And then I went to a couple different various jobs. I was trying to find myself at that point because I know I wanted to be in leadership. So I went to a couple different jobs. I'd work from the very bottom at a skilled trade person coming in to leadership. And then I'd find out that, sometimes you might get to a top leadership role and find out that it's not your company. And you can't change the culture or the morale or the policies because it's not your company at the end of the day. And I did that. I spent 13 and a half years in a Toyota manufacturing plant. I come in at a bottom mechanic and left as an assistant manager. And I left that last time because I was running my own business. I had started my first welding shop and fabrication business during that time. So I'm starting to do this as a side gig and starting to get some traction. And essentially, we had this huge problem inside the company, and they said, "Hey, Eddie, we think that between your knowledge, your relationship with the people that work under you and for you, the employees, you know how to optimize this and build a system that'll really exponentially increase this company to a place that everybody's going to be satisfied." So I went to work. I mean, I spent a lot of time building these systems and processes. And I got there, I had the meeting with the big wigs, with the big parts of the company, and they said, "Eddie, this is great. I love the business plan. You knocked it out of the park, but we're not going to commit to another supervisor, another general manager. We're not going to commit to these positions. You need to figure out how to do it cheaper." And essentially they said, "Look, we know you know how to do this, but we're not going to do it like this because that doesn't fit with what we're trying to do." And at that point I said, "All right, I'm done." At that point, the handwriting's on the wall. Like, I'm not going to change this company. It's not my company. So I left. I put in my 2-week notice and I left. And man, I went for it. And the entrepreneurial journey really took off from that point. But to really tie this into my real estate and development journey, as a young boy, I didn't realize my dad would buy pieces of land and I would do the dirt work and I would build houses with my dad. And we would build a house, we'd keep it for a short time, and then we'd sell it. Well, I didn't realize that what I was really doing was developing some land. Dad would build a house, and then we would sell it. And sometimes we'd buy enough land, we'd build a couple houses on it and sell it in segments. So I didn't realize that I was in this land development game way, way early. And then when I got older, during the time working for this manufacturing plant, I had this knack for seeing opportunity. So I would see this 3 or 4 acre plot of land that had a house on it that was run down. I'm like, I can flip that. I can go in there with what I've seen my dad do, and I can renovate this house and sell it for way more. And I always had this knack for numbers. Like, I love numbers. And I'm like, look, if I can buy that for 60 grand, I can put 100 in it, and 100's over the top. Like, I can put 100 grand in this thing and turn this thing around. I can sell it for 240. I make some money. And I did that as a proof of concept. I did it a couple times and got pretty good at it. And at that point, I started measuring, man, I can only flip so many houses. And I started stacking up my profit margins. And I'm like, look, I'm never going to get rich from this. I'm never going to retire from doing these single family homes. And I start paying attention to HGTV. I'm like, how are these guys able to do it? They look like they're making millions. Well, they're on a TV show. So producers are paying them. And I found out real early, you can make some money in single family fix and flips, but unless you start a coaching program or get picked up by some production company, you're not going to make life-changing money. Not in my opinion. Not where I wanted to go. I could make enough money for me, but I couldn't make enough money to save me and you both. Like your family, my family, like putting the whole family on payroll and not have them do anything. Like that kind of money is what I was trying to chase.
So all of this was while you were working on your welding company, while
Yeah.
you were building your welding business on the side. Instead of doing the W-2 job, you just decided, hey, I know how to do numbers. Numbers make sense. Let me try to flip houses, right?
Yeah, of course. Actually, before I got real hot and heavy in the welding company, I was flipping real estate. I was always flipping real estate. I was always flipping an opportunity. It's just I love real estate tied to it because I knew from a young age they're not making any more of it. And it seemed like the scarcest thing that people paid the most for was the things that didn't have an abundance. So I'm like, look, if that's the best location and nobody else can build a house around there, somebody wants that house because of the location. So I'm going to buy that house. I'm going to pay a fair market value for it, and then I'm going to fix it up and sell it for this market value, and I can make this arbitrage in between. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm trading some time here, and I started figuring out my time. The amount of time I would actually spend flipping these houses, I was making like $20 an hour. I was working my
Were you
butt off.
physically working? Were you physically working on those deals? I mean,
Yeah, I was
were you
physically.
swinging the hammer?
I was swinging the hammer, man. It was totally the wrong way to go about it. Like I should have hired contractors. And I admit I wasn't the smartest at that point, but you don't know what you don't know. And it's what you don't know that will cost you the most. And then the welding company, I was like, look, I know because of the things I've been involved in the companies, I know how to empower other people. I can hire people. I can get people to do this. And I did start doing that. And it got better, but it was still my passion. I love this welding company. I love creating things from nowhere. Like I'll never forget, we built Kentucky's largest stainless sculpture. And a guy came to me with a drawing and a little bitty model. And I went to a shop and there's this pile of plates on the floor. And he shows me the model and he shows me this drawing. He goes, can you build that out of those plates? I said, absolutely. I was always a visionary. I could always see something and just had these unique wheels that would just turn. And I could see it before it was ever finished. I was like, yeah, man, all we need to do is build that monostructure inside of those steel plates and then weld the outside on and then finish it out with the stainless and everything that's in the middle of it. That's no big deal. And I guess I was good enough at it and had so much courage and confidence that everybody else was like, I believe him. Like, I believe he can do this. We'll give you the job. So I got a lot of work for that reason because I was good as explaining it to say, yeah, man, we just need to put this together here and then bend all the metal that goes in between. It'll be beautiful, man. We can do this. You want to do this? I want to do this. Let's go.
They had a vision, but you knew how to execute. You know exactly what steps you need to do it, and you had an image in your head. Hey, listen, I need to do these steps, and you broke it down the steps and what I need to do to achieve it. And people actually, that's what I need. Someone who actually knows what they're talking about and actually by steps. And when you explain it, like you explained right now, it's a no-brainer.
Right. Because at the end of the day, it's one thing to be a visionary. It's one thing to have a dream. But can you have somebody that can take that dream and break it down into like draw by number steps? And I think for me, that's the way my mind worked, was very elementary. Like, okay, if you want to make $100 million and you want to do it in 5 years, then what does it take? Like, I was always this guy here in the middle that was always building the business plan. Like, you want to make $100 million? I believe you can. You want to do it in 5 years? I also believe you can. But what's the steps? What do we need to do? What type of business do we need to buy and sell? What kind of real estate do we need to buy and sell? What's going to make us, do you want to make $100 million in sales? Or do you want to make an actual $100 million in liquidity? Like real cash? Because that's a different story.
Very different story.
And you got to figure that out. Like, what do you really want? And I was good at always asking questions. What do you really want, Alex? Do you want $100 million of profit? Okay, then why are you flipping multifamily value-add properties? It's going to take you 50 years to make $100 million clean. So why are you doing it that way? And I'm just picking on multifamily for a minute, but I think if
you let me think about it for a second. I guess
because think about it. With multifamily, you have investors, right? So your investors are getting the lion's share of the profit. Now, because of a general partnership, you're able to put in a smaller amount of money and make a lot based on the amount of money you put into it. But if you're going to make $100 million profit, think about that. How many properties would you need to buy, renovate? You're talking raise the capital, manage the process. You're going to use third-party property management, but you're going to asset manage too. So how many people are you going to hire? Because that's also going to eat up the profit, right? You got to pay people to do the other things. So you're talking $100 million clean. Start thinking about that. Like, really start thinking about that.
It depends on the structure. There's so many things, right? And in multifamily, a lot of people structure in syndications. And I think what's important is for the last few years, people think multifamily is so sexy and cool. You have so many units, so many doors. But in reality, how many do you actually own? Because people have so many large teams on the board, so many limited partners, investors. They own 70% of the house, and general partners only 30-20%. And then they dilute in between other 5-10 partners. And now you get in only 1 or 2, 5% of the deal actually that you own. Yep. When numbers are large, it's still substantial, right? But it's still you exposing yourself to additional risks. So it's a lot of pros and cons here.
Absolutely. You know, the biggest thing though is I started with a fund. I didn't start as a syndicator. I had done some joint ventures before, but I started with a fund. And the reason for that was I looked at the big guys, Blackstone, BlackRock, and I'm like, how did they do it? I wanted to fast track my way to where those guys were because they were able to buy a lot of real estate over a short period of time. So to me, they built a blueprint. They knew exactly where they were going, and they knew what it was going to take to get there. So I wanted to do the exact same thing, and that was really where I started thinking bigger was I got to do a real estate fund. And I got to raise capital by the masses and then put that into real estate, not by formulating a bunch of partnerships, but by being the owner, like the actual guy that is signing on the loan, raising the capital, employing the teams, and not giving up all my ownership to all these different parties. Just being the fund manager to be the one that raised the capital, has the person running the deal, and doing it from that front instead of syndicate, and partner with, 10, 12 different people to get a deal done.
So you created this fund before you started syndicating. So how did you get experience on large multifamily? How do you wasn't scared of it? I don't know.
Yeah.
From flipping small houses to jumping, and not even you go in reverse. Everyone first syndicating and they build funds and they have their following and they reverse everything. But you go from different direction. You go on a big boy leak right away and you just go on your way through it. So how did you manage it?
Well, I'd say first, my experience taught me I shouldn't be afraid of anything. Fear is fake evidence appearing real. So there was no reason to be afraid of something. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? And all it takes is education. So I went deep 7 years just learning every detail of big boy real estate, funds, syndication, why funds. And it quickly come down to a fund. I can buy multiple properties with the same offering. A syndication, I can only buy one piece of property. That's a whole lot of work for one piece of property. And all my chips are on the table. What if something went wrong? And if I knew anything about business at this point, it's not about if it will go wrong, it's when. There's always something you miss on. That's the way of the business. If you have a perfect business plan, run the play one time and see if it's still perfect. I bet it's not. You got to change things. But when you're locked into it, like, you can't change nothing.
Okay, I'll play devil's advocate here. Eddie, if you are, for example, angel investor, and you have a company to invest, and the founder says, "I never done it before, but I have no fear. I'm gonna do it. Give me money for this fund, and I'll make it happen." Would you invest in this person?
Well, it would come down to exactly what I created. Let me see who's a part of your operations team. So let me see so I'm going to go way advanced. Let me see the PPM. Let me see your offering memorandum. Let me see your executive summary. I want to see who is on the team that's experienced, because if nobody's experienced, absolutely not. I'm not going to invest. But here's how my PPM read. It was, I've done this in business. My wife was a real estate broker. I've done all these house flips. I did have roughly $65 million of development under my belt. No, actually not even that much. Probably about $20 million of development under my belt at that point. So I had developed, but again, I had developed with other people or myself. So I had that experience. So I had experience on paper. It just wasn't buying multifamily. But here's the switch that I'd flip every single time. I'm a businessman. And I know how to run business because I understand how to write systems and processes. I understand how to put the right people in the right seats to make it run. You're talking multifamily, and you're saying that there's 300 doors at that address. You're making it kind of what it's not. You know what's on that address over there with 300 doors on it? A business. It's a business. I know how to run that business because there's employees, there's contractors, there's investors, there's partners, there's people involved. There's customers that have a public-facing domain that's Google. And those Google stars, they got to align. Like if you have a bad Google rating, nobody's going to live there. So that business will die. So I understood that better than anybody in the space at that time, I believe. And then what I did was I partnered with people. So I built my fund and I said, hey, who do I need to have this experience? And I built a board of advisors. And then in my PPM, it showed me and my experience. It showed my wife and her experience. She was a real estate broker. So we understood real estate. It talked about my track record. And it also said we only partner with best-in-class operators that are in key markets. So what we would do is we'd bring all the equity. But because we're bringing all the equity, we'd also need to sign on the loan to maintain our fiduciary responsibility for our investors' sake. We weren't a fund of funds. Matter of fact, fund of funds wasn't even a word that I was aware of when we first started our first fund years ago. It wasn't something that everybody run around saying. We were an actual fund just like Blackstone, except with Blackstone, they also do the same thing. They partner with best-in-class people. They're not the operators of every single opportunity, but they're also the ones signing on the loan. So we just need to do the same thing. So what we did was we raised the equity and we would partner with the best-in-class people. And my board of advisors was not going to let me make mistakes because they had the experience. They had done this many, many times. So I had their experience and they were advising me. So if somebody came to me and said, hey, I want to invest, but what's your experience? Well, I got David over here. He's been doing this 35 years. I got Joe over here. He's been doing this 20 years. And then, look, our equity is paired next to a best-in-class operator. So that's how we did it.
So when you closed, how was the structure for those deals? For those advisors, you just give him a slice of the deal and the fund owned everything else? Or how did it work?
Mm-hmm. So you just give your advisors whatever they need, to partner with you. They're a part of your success as well, so you got to give them something.
So basically, they become a part of. They weren't part of your fund, but they were part of the JV for specific opportunity that you found, and they were advisors on the basically JV where the fund had majority and they had some advisory piece on it.
I mean, they are a part of my fund because they're all over my PPM. They are my board of advisors. They're my investment committee.
But are they inside of the structure of the PM?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you structure it specifically. So when you do a fund, explain it to me. So, and for our listeners, how does it work? Usually when you have fund before you raise any funds, you already have some structure. Do you have already some key markets that you want to focus for this particular fund? And you already had advisors inside this fund before you start raising capital?
Yes, of course. So there's a narrative that you need to write. And this is where people come to me all the time to help them build funds. And really, everybody thinks about funds as this blind pool of money. But it's not any close. If it is, that's why you're not raising capital, because you didn't do a really good job of explaining the business plan. And what does this fund do? How does it operate? How does it structure returns? How does it take in money? What does it do with the money once it's in there? All of this needs to be a part of it. And the best PPMs that we write comes down to that narrative. And you're telling the investor and your operators this compelling story of how you do business and what you do in key markets. So to me, my first thing is I need to build a market study. Where do we invest? What type of property do we invest in? There's an age, right? So a vintage. So we laid all that out in our fund. City, state, population, type of property, rent growth, job markets, all the economic indicators. We laid all that out in our fund. So it was easy to understand. And we just spelled it all out. So if somebody never knew about anything to do with real estate, it was my goal to write that PPM or that narrative in a way that you could read this like a newspaper and never heard about multifamily, and by the end of it you were ready to invest because I had educated the person that was interested.
Very good. But you basically outline your buy box and you said, this is our buy box. We're going to stick to it. This is our goal. This is our plan. And that's what we're going to execute. So tell us, what markets did you focus on at that time and how big was your fund?
So the first fund was $20 million and we focused on the Sun Belt market. The second fund was $50 million. We focused on, again, the Sun Belt market. That's the Texas, the Floridas, the North Carolinas, South Carolinas, and Tennessee, Kentucky. We included those two because they were a good, strong Midwest, kind of tech hub, not tech hub, but it's where a lot of the crossroads happen, where trucks are coming through, there's factories, there's people that live there, and it's a growing market.
And what year was that when you created your first fund?
That would have been, we started in 2018, finalized concept in 19, we launched in 2020.
Wow, right around the COVID.
Yes, and complete transparency. Our first fund, we raised $24.6 million, and I ended up handing it back. I don't know why, but I had a good mentor that I was asking questions. And I would have become very good from the previous 7 years of reading the market, telling what was going on, seeing signs and indicators. Now, I'm not going to say I'm a fortune teller, but I knew that something wasn't going to be right. I didn't know it was going to be COVID. I didn't know they were going to print trillions of dollars. I didn't know that. But I knew we were getting ready to see a pretty good economy crash. And I called my mentor and I said, let me tell you what I'm seeing and tell me if I'm right. I said, I'm seeing businesses, I'm seeing houses that I never seen for sale before. I'm talking real estate that I didn't even know existed. It's how expensive it is. I believe that we're getting ready to see the biggest economy crash we've ever seen in my time. And he goes, Eddie, you're so wise. I said, well, look, I got this fund. I've been fortunate to raise some money, and I'm getting ready to deploy this into some multifamily assets. I'm thinking it's a bad idea. And he said, I can't tell the future, Eddie, but I would not catch a knife that is falling. I would wait until this thing hits rock bottom. So if I was you, you're a wise guy, I would think it through this. Put down all the scenarios on the wall, come up with the pros and cons, think about the worst case scenario and see if you can survive it. Like, can you survive if you lose all your investors' money? And I was like, absolutely not. So I handed it back. I called him up and I said, hey, I'm going to hand this back to you. Like, your soft commits, your actual commits, we're handing it all back. And, I couldn't believe it. I was extremely nervous. I thought for sure that I'd be black labeled, but they said, Eddie, thank you. You could have went out here, man, and egotistically lost all our money. And I've had people that's called me up that had invested with me, and they're like, dude, those properties that you were looking at, dude, they're going under. Like, they're going under right now. And I was like, I know, it was the wrong time to buy. That overinflation period, man, it was the wrong time. And it's amazing. We've done a market study that formulated rent growth. So like 2016, 2017, and then the 2.5% rent growth. And we kind of drew that trend line all the way out. And then where we are today, it's amazing. If you would have stayed at like a 2.5%, 2% rent growth all the way out, that's where we're getting to right now. It's actually a little bit below that. Because this big fake pump of appreciation happened. When you buy in this bubble up here, you run out of oxygen. And there's nothing you can do because if the rent keeps falling, because believe me, you're direct to the customer. And what I mean by direct to customer, you're direct to the guy that can pay for the rent. That's how you pay your mortgage. So if you can't pay the bill because he can't pay his bill, where's it going to come from? Like if you're 100% occupied, you're too cheap. If you're 70% occupied, you're too expensive. And what's your break-even occupancy? Like you got to, as a businessman, and you're a businessman, you buy properties, you're a businessman, you're running businesses. They're just so happen to call multifamily in 1, 2, 3 part place. Like it's your responsibility to figure out what the projections look like and how your customers are being treated. And if his paycheck's falling down, guess what? He's going to have to go somewhere else or pay you less. So when you're up here and you achieved a 12, 15% rent increase over the last 2 or 3 years because they're printing money like crazy, you're not going to be able to sustain that. It's going to fall back down because they didn't continue to print money. And then the rent comes back down. Now you're back down to here, but you paid up here. And you paid off of future pro forma, future appreciation based off NOI. Well, that future is here, not here. And this is where we started. Like we're here and we're right here. This is where we start. We're leveling back out. All this, I hope you didn't get floating rate debt.
I know you're trying to build your funds, you're doing a lot of things, and a background, you're still running businesses. So where did your multifamily journey brought you later on after 2020?
So, I started really looking at the market, and I started asking myself the question, where do I really want to go in life? How many people do I want to help? And that's where I really started looking at, is multifamily the answer? Yes, because it has real estate. Multifamily is a way that it pays the bills to own the real estate that's in a location. It's like McDonald's, right? McDonald's uses unbelievable systems and processes to own the best real estate in the entire world. But there was a business on top of it that paid for that piece of real estate. And if you can make sense of the business plan to own it, you own that real estate that can't be replaced. Even if you tore McDonald's down, you still have that piece of real estate. And I started asking myself the question, if I truly want to help lives here, how do I need to pivot? And I think if I was to teach anybody listening right now, never be afraid to pivot, but first understand where the pivot needs to be. Because you can pivot into anything, but what's it look like in the future? And I would highly recommend getting out a whiteboard and physically putting down on that whiteboard all the different ideas that you have for owning real estate, number one. Because real estate, they don't make any more of. And if you can find out a way to pay for it, it appreciates over time. And you can depreciate it to get rid of your earned income for you and your investors. So real estate is a good game. But what business needs to be on top of that real estate to make it cash flow? So take that whiteboard and write down where you are today. Like if you have $100 in your pocket, then write that down. You got $100 in your pocket. And you want to own a $5 million portfolio in the next 2 years. What are the steps you have to take to get there? And I would honestly say the first step you need to take is who's going to lend on it. So go to your local bank and go in that local bank with an empty legal pad and a pen, maybe 2 pens so you don't run out of ink. And ask the guy at the commercial lending department, say, I want to buy multifamily real estate. What do I have to do to get there? Most likely he's going to tell you that you're going to need a balance sheet that's equal to that net worth of the property. So if you want to buy a $100,000 home, you know, $100,000 net worth. And you're going to need 10% liquidity, meaning you're going to need 10% post-closing. Okay, great. So then you got to ask yourself the question, where do I get it? And I would always tell you, look, I'm getting ready to launch this book, and I'm not even going to launch this book with my own money. I'm raising money to even launch my book, even though it's $15,000 to $30,000, because I know somebody else needs a return on their investment. And let's be honest, most people either don't know how to get a return or they don't want to spend the time getting it. So they're happy to partner with me and get a 20 to 25% or even a 30% average annualized return on that investment. And they don't have to do anything for it. They just invest in me. So there's somebody out there that can lend you the $100,000 or lend you the balance sheet or the 10%, or you can partner with somebody. Maybe you partner with somebody that does have everything you need. But go to the bank and find out exactly what you need. That was me. When I first started in real estate, I wanted to do big boy real estate. I walked in there and said, hey, I want to buy this 30-unit apartment building over here. And I think it's a good investment. I've done all the underwriting on it. But I want to sign on the loan. What do I need to do? And he's like, have you ever operated multifamily before? No, but I've operated business. And I took him through the spill of business. He goes, honestly, I got to say, I think you checked the box for running the business, but who's going to manage the tenants? Oh, well, I'm not going to be in the business of that, bud. I'm going to be actually hiring third-party property management. They know way more than I do about the laws of tenants. And he goes, oh, great. Okay, so that checks that box. Well, how much are they asking for it? $5 million. Okay. So $5 million, you need to put down at least 25% down. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to over leverage myself, so say 35. Okay. Do you have the 35% down or 25% down? No, but I can get it. And he's starting to smile. He's starting to see the grit there. And he said, also, Eddie, it is the bank's requirement. The investment committee does like to see that you have an equal net worth to the loan. So you would need a $5 million balance sheet for that. And we'd want about 10% post-closing liquidity. So we'd need about 10% of that money in an account for operations, like actual cash, contingency, if something goes wrong. And that can just be in an account here in this bank. We're not tying it up. We're just saying, we need to see you have that amount of money. I was like, okay, I get that too. So then I go back to my office and I'm like, okay, I got to check this box and this box and this box. So I start calling up property management companies. Hey, do you manage buildings that's in this town, 30 units? Yeah. What do you charge? And I put that in my spreadsheet. And then I went and found, all right, how do I need to raise money? And I'm like, hey, this deal can pay a 15% return. So I started going out to everybody that would listen. I'd say, hey, if I was to buy an apartment building and over the next 3 to 5 years it paid you 15% returns, would that be something you'd invest in? Yeah, I'd invest in that. Cool. How much would you invest? And I just started asking everybody questions. And then from that standpoint, I went to a guy that did own real estate and owned some business. I was like, hey, man, direct question, what's your net worth? And he's like, oh, shoot, I don't know, Eddie. I mean, I own this, own that. I own some equipment. I own some real estate. Oh, probably $8 or $10 million. Would you partner with me and go buy this 30-unit apartment building for $5 million? Just let me borrow that balance sheet. And he goes, well, I'd have to see the numbers, but sounds kind of crazy, but I got to where I am today because I was a little crazy. That's how you start, is be curious and ask questions. Ask lots of questions. If you don't know, where do you learn it? And I think that you could probably learn a lot from these podcasts like this, YouTube, which you're going to find this podcast there, I'm sure. And then go to seminars, go to conferences and learn. Like, be a sponge. And look, we both walked today because we weren't afraid to fall down, because walking was way more important than the pain of falling down. So we just kept getting up until we learned to walk, right? And then you learn to run. And then you learn how to run real fast, most likely, and maybe set a record or two in high school. I didn't, because I didn't go to high school necessarily with other people.
Still, you are who you are today. With doing all so much experience, it doesn't matter where you started. But listen, I think it's very important for all listeners just to stop it right here, just rewind a little bit and listen again. Guys, you have to take steps one after another. Just go ask a question, find the buildings that you like and say, listen, what is going to take me to get it down, to close on this property. And then if who is your key element who can advise you? You need the loan officer. Okay, let's talk to them. It's not necessarily bank. You can go loan mortgage, whatever, online. You can find someone. There's plenty of people, and they can give you steps. Okay, you need this and this and this. And then you go reverse engineer. You're trying to check those boxes like Eddie just said. And I think it's a powerful thing. So Eddie, You've done a lot of things. You run in successful businesses. You understand how it works. You applied it to real estate. Also works for you. Everything you touch becomes gold, looks like. And so tell me, what happened in your journey that you decided, okay, I know you wanted to liquidate your assets. I remember you mentioned it before, that I liquidated my assets, so I'm starting from zero, but that's what I wanted. That's everyone's path in your life. So what made you to actually to liquidate and to
Yeah.
to get this cash, because a lot of people usually think, okay, I'm real estate game for good. I'm just gonna acquire as many assets as possible, pass it to my relatives, to my family, and then I'll retire myself and three bloodlines after me. What made you shift?
So I think everybody needs to really look within, and look, if you're in business with people and you have grown to a point that those people don't resonate with you the way that you used to, it's okay. And also understand that the most amount of financial jump you're ever going to make is by saying no to something or exiting something. So I really looked within a lot and asked myself the question, if I had 2 weeks to live, would I want to do what I'm doing right now with who I'm with and where I'm going? Does it fit that? Am I satisfied with everything going on? And if there's too many days it's no, then I would start adjusting that. Because at the end of the day, over the past year, I kept asking myself, how many people are we helping? By what we're doing right now and the amount of time we're spending working on this, how many people are we helping? And it was dissatisfying to me. And I said, okay, well, this is not me. This is not Eddie Austin. This is definitely not the Eddie Austin BEX version, which is the person I'm becoming now. And I decided it's better to walk away from all of that and start fresh, start from zero. Because the really cool part is you're not starting from zero completely. You're starting from zero with a whole toolbox full of education and ways to do it better. And that's what it's all about, is not being afraid to start from zero. Because let's be honest, every phase of your life, you leveled up. Right? It's like you go in and you try some things out and you test. You're not starting at the same point. You're a different level. And I think in life you got to push yourself to become a different level every time and recognize, I did this and it didn't quite work, but I'm up here now because I got more experience. And then you do it another time and then you level up. And you just keep leveling up in life. Like the journey's never over. Like for me, that journey that I was in, that I exited from, the journey kind of felt stale and over. But I'm like, it's time to go fresh. It's time to restart. And it's not like I'm starting from rock bottom. Even though rock bottom, I would encourage, is the most solid foundation you'll ever build on. The only way to go is up. So don't be afraid of that either. But it's okay to exit, because I'm telling you, the biggest exponential returns will come when you exit something. Whether that's a partnership, a building, a business, anything. The only thing I would encourage you, man, is if you got a good husband or wife that compliments you, never exit that relationship. Because those are once in a lifetime. I'm not here to give you marriage advice, but I'm telling you right now, I would not be as successful as I am without the wife that I have. Like, she empowers me. I wouldn't want to be near as successful as I am today if it wasn't for my wife and my kids. I really wouldn't. So never get rid of that power front. Like, if you can make something work there, stick in that, man, because that's the power. That's where it all comes in.
The same for you. My wife is right here for me. And we had our roller coaster in our journey on real estate and other businesses, and she's just always there.
Yeah.
And she's always encouraged me, yes, real estate. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I need a break from real estate. She's like, nope, this is our financial freedom. You got to do it. And,
but
this
you
is our
don't
life.
have
It's
to.
our journey.
I would encourage you, Alex, that it doesn't have to be multifamily. There's other cash flowing things that go on top of real estate that you can pay for it and you can exit it. So look, let's be honest, man. You could go into warehouse space, storage units. You could go into office space. You could go into RV parks. There's so many other real estate journeys. And it's just a learning experience.
Yes, but is there any, like, when we go to too many directions, there's too many shiny objects. I love real estate in any shape and form. I like retail, I like strip malls, I like mobile home parks, I like self-storages, I like RV parks, you name it. I even sent an offer for a self-service car wash because I like it. And I've been negotiating for 3 years because I think I'm going to get it someday, and I probably will. how do you know when to focus? Is it more beneficial to focus? In a sense, I know how to do multifamily, and I don't have to run circles around and try and understand, okay, if I'm doing the right thing. Now I have something that I know how to do. I just need to stick to it and find the right niche on the market. But what is your take on it?
You got to focus on the one thing, man. What's the one thing that will set you free? And that's the only thing you focus on. And you put the blinders on, you say no to everything else. But the thing for me is I got really good at the one thing, which was business. So I do need to understand the details of owning a car wash or a storage unit facility. But at the end of the day, it's a business. And if you're really good at the business and raising capital and everything else, like, you can make anything work. And I do think it's powerful to focus on the one thing. And if multifamily is the one that complements you, but look, if you're not super passionate about multifamily, then don't do it. Like, we're here for a very short time in life. So do what makes you the most fulfilled.
Let me put it this way. I'm passionate about it because I like to see the change. This is the long-term project is a difference. But in real estate, you renovate apartment, you put a nice tenant in this apartment, and you feel okay, you accomplished something. You actually help in the neighborhood, help in the city, and your tenants appreciate it. So it's very rewarding on a personal level. So
Yes.
I do like it. The problem is here, that the market is different. I started investing in 2018, and 19 I had a good run, and then I stuck in looking for the right multifamily. I burned a little bit on a large multifamily. Now I'm sticking back into JV opportunities, but I'm not looking for mediocre deals, let me put it this way. That's why it's taking a long time, but I'm looking for something the home run. I'm still sending offers, and I'm looking for something that's going to make sense. But I don't want to waste energy on something just to make it work, just to make deal, just to make it, if it makes sense. A lot of people jump into real estate because they FOMO, and they feel like they're missing out, and they want to brag about the amount of units. I don't want that. I want something that's going to be substantial and really impactful for the family.
If you're worth $100 million in the next 5 years, nobody's going to laugh. Nobody's going to judge you. So don't worry about what you say no to and what you say yes to. Make sure it complements who you are, what you do. And if you stay on that, you'll blow $100 million out of the water because you focus on what's most important for you, not the amount of doors. Because the amount of doors is just a fictitious number, man. And let's be honest, most of the time in JV partnerships, let's say if that JV deal only makes you $40 a door, then you better go get a bunch of doors to make a whole bunch of money. But if you structure those deals right and they make you a couple $1,000s a door, it makes you a bigger difference. And that's a measurement of time. And I would ask you, look, stop chasing money and start saying yes to the things that give you the most amount of time. So for me, I don't make any decisions that will make me $300,000 a year. Unless it makes me $1 million, I don't say yes to it. Because at $1 million, I can pay somebody $250,000 a year, and I bought all my time back. And I just need to manage that deal for 30 to 45 minutes a day. And then I can go do another deal for $1 million or 2 or 3. But I have enough money in that opportunity that I can empower people. I can employ people. If you're saying yes to deals that are going to make you $250,000, you're going to have to do it all, man. You're going to have to wear every hat. So it's a different experience, of course, but try to level up to that experience. Like, figure out what it takes.
No, absolutely. I think it's not only the location and price per unit and how much income, but it's also if it fits the business plan. So if I have a plan, for example, I want to still go through BRR, but try to value add. I know it's tough, and a lot of listeners will think about, oh, it's impossible to do value adds. But here and there, I hear stories people getting this seller carry deal, 30 units, and actually put an extra 20 on it, and it happens every single day in any market. So the goal is just to keep grinding in the direction and keep being focused on the business plan. But here's a question to you, right? Hitting one target is extremely powerful, as you mentioned, but it's also exhausting because sometimes there's nothing fits in that criteria, and you looking and you're stuck. Is it beneficial to make a lot of deals along the way and some other progress, so you do have this progress and you have this development going on ongoing, even though it's still some work done, but you have something to work on, or you still need to focus on one thing?
Man, I'm gonna put that back on you for a minute. It's never a grind for me. And nobody will beat you when you enjoy every day of the journey. The guy over here that it's a grind, like every day, like he's burning out because it's just not working. He's underwriting 100 deals, 300 deals a year, and he's just not finding the one. A person like me that's over here smiling the whole time, winning or losing, you'll never beat Hart, man. You'll never outrun the guy that just loves what he does every single day, whether he's winning or losing. So I think that's the true thing. If I was to just tell anybody on this podcast that's listening, find that part that you're most passionate about and just stay in it and stay long enough to become relevant. There's power in staying in something long enough to become relevant. And here's the thing. If you enjoy it, there's people that enjoy it until the new wears off and they drop off. But if you're still out here just enjoying every step of the way, you can't beat that guy. You can't beat him. Like, he loves it. He loves losing. He loves winning. He loves the days where nothing happens. He's just happy to be alive. You can't beat that guy. Like, you can't beat a guy that has nothing to lose. And for me, every single day, my journey's not measured by wins or loses. It's about enjoying my time. So it's going to be hard to step in a ring with a guy like me. It's like, I don't care if this takes 5 more years, man. I'm smiling every single day. But for the guy that's out there going, man, I needed that to work, he's gonna fall out way before. I ain't gonna worry about that guy. Next couple months after he don't find those deals, he's out of here. He's running a liquor store. You know, he's doing something completely different. It's the guys that enjoy this every step of the way. Those are the guys you got to look out for. The guy that's just smiling through the hard times and going, still here. We gonna have one in the hopper eventually. Just keep on striving, man. Just keep on going. We're going to get it. That's the thing you got to do, man. You got to love that journey.
No, I love real estate. I think it's, in the end of the day, everything boils down to that. But tell me, with all of your developments, you had a great journey. You had a run. Do you have currently a fund that you run in? Or what do you do nowadays?
So we're between funds right now. We are working on a hybrid private equity fund. I love businesses, especially service businesses. I'm looking to build a private equity fund that buys the service businesses that are in the verticals of multifamily and development. So the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing companies, the excavation companies, owning all of those companies at the same time giving my investors depreciation, rapid depreciation off the equipment owned, and then secondly, the depreciation of the real estate, the multifamily or the land development that turns into home development. That is the fund that I want to get into that we're building now. So we're in between funds. Like we've closed one down, finished with that one, and now we're building this concept of this new hybrid private equity fund that buys the businesses and then also owns the real estate.
Yeah, because the statistics are staggering, right? There's a lot of boomers retiring at the moment at those service industries, and it will be an opportunity to get on board in a favorable terms. Because not a lot of people actually buy in service businesses. I think it became trendy recently with Cody Sanchez putting it out there, and she's talking a lot about it. But I think that's exciting.
But here's the thing. I don't know what I don't know. So if my advisors, the people that I hire that are way smarter than me, if they say, Eddie, we know the life vision of Eddie Austin where he wants to go, buddy, this is 2 funds. It's a private equity fund over here that buys businesses. It's a real estate fund over here. Because at the end of the day, I want to exit this entire fund to Wall Street for a way bigger dollar amount than what I got in it by an equity multiple. So if they're like, hey, private equity funds on Wall Street don't want real estate and service businesses in the same one. Okay, we'll just cut them in 2. We'll make 2 funds. Which you don't know what you don't know. So don't be egotistic.
It's a work in progress.
Right. We're not going to say, oh, we're going to do this regardless what you say, and then call up Wall Street and they go, we don't buy anything like that. Then you're talking a lot of money separating assets.
And even nowadays, you still reverse engineer. You still asking question. Okay, what is the end goal here? End goal is here, sell to the Wall Street, and what actually they buy, and if it fits the criteria to them to buy.
Of course.
Yep. Very powerful. Eddie, I have a last couple questions for you. Quick hits, lightning round. One book or resource that shaped your business or real estate mindset.
Oh man, it's always comes with the journey within. Favorite author is Napoleon Hill, so I'd have to say Outwitting the Devil.
Very powerful book. Most important trait for a business leader or developer, it's important to grow and develop.
Communication. It's all about sales, but it's the one that communicate the vision into actionable steps. So communication is the number one skill set anybody's got to learn. And look, if you're asking somebody to go dig a ditch, also be the guy that will take off the suit jacket and go dig a ditch with them.
Show an example and be there if you need it. But it's like you said, originally when you were starting your welding business, you said, I have an image and I was able to project this image and I can see clearly what steps are. But now you actually add into that point that it's not only seeing that's important, but communicating all of those steps. This is actually what makes the sale.
Right.
This is actually what makes the connection. This is
2,000%. Because at the end of the day, I was a good enough communicator to take what I seen and what he's seen and figure out how to communicate that into a way that we had a vertical alignment. And that vertical alignment gave us the ability to end up building Kentucky's largest freestanding sculpture. It still stands today.
Very good. So last question from this series. One thing you wish you knew when you were just starting out.
It's okay to start over and stop trading hours for dollars. Stop measuring time. Time is money. Start measuring how much money can I make in this period of time. Flip the equation. Like somebody says, oh man, I make $100 an hour. Okay. How can you make $10,000 in 1 hour? There's nothing wrong with making way more money in a shorter period of time. So if I would have learned that skill set in my 20s, I'd already be making $100 million a month.
Wow. Yeah, I should think about it more often. Okay. Eddie, one last question for you. If someone wants to connect with you, to network, talk real estate or business, how can they reach out to you?
Eddie Austin BEX on all platforms. You can even go to eddieaustinbex.com. You can see all my social media, podcasts I've been on, everything about me. And look, I would tell you to connect with people. Connect with Alex, because every single thing that you want, somebody else has either been there or wants it too, and they'll help you on your journey there.
Absolutely. Eddie, thank you for sharing your powerful journey, your insights, and your wisdom bits. Your journey is nothing short of excitement and grit and persistence, and you still made it, and you started over and you do again. You open-minded to new ventures, to new journeys. That's what I like about you and about your journey. Keep going up, and I would love to hear more about your fund when it comes to fruition, when you tease out everything and you're ready to go.
Let me know how I can help you, man. That's what's most important. How can I help you?
And I will be in touch. Very good. Thank you everyone for joining. We had a blast and hope you enjoyed it as well. Feel free to like and subscribe, and of course, keep moving forward.